Hi. So actually, I'm not sure where you heard till, but like in the last session, we had ended on how what the nature of truth is and how existence itself is truth, and that since existence, as was mentioned, existence is coexistence, coexistence is truth. And because coexistence is the nature of existence. And so he had said, because coexistence is the nature of existence, therefore there is this progression towards completeness. And then there is this progression towards development. And then this development occurs. And as a result of development, we have the emergence of a conscious, configurationally complete conscious atom, which we call the Jeevan. And then even the number and proportion of Jeevans that there are supposed to be on a planet, even that is decided based on what is natural for that system. In an existentially natural manner, all of that gets sorted out. Even humans don't have to do anything in this regard. And he says that all that humans have to do, I mean, there is no contribution of humans up till this point. And humans come into the picture only when the human body comes in. And then also all that we are left to do is to understand our own order. All the rest of existences has emerged in a natural way. We have to do nothing about it. We never did anything about it. All those, all that, there is no planning that we have had to do or contribute for all of this beautiful order to emerge. All we need to plan for is our own understanding of order and how to live in coexistence. So this is where we have sort of paused, and we can continue from there.
Okay.
Let me put it on full screen before I do this.
निरंतर प्रभावशील रहने वाला कोई चीज है तो अस्तित्व ही है। अस्तित्व का स्वरूप सह अस्तित्व होना बताए गए, तो सह अस्तित्व ही निरंतर प्रभावशील है। फलस्वरूप विकास होता है, विकास क्रम होता है, विकसित हो जाता है, वो सब जीवन हो जाते हैं। विकास क्रम में रासायनिक भौतिक वस्तु के रूप में निरंतर कार्यरत है। तो जीवन कितना होना है, क्या ये बात अस्तित्व सहज है, ये मानव सहज नहीं है। मानव को कोई प्लानिंग बनाना नहीं है, तो पंचवर्षीय योजना बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है। ये स्वयं में अस्तित्व स्वयं अपने विधि से ही ये चारों अवस्थाओं को प्रकाशित कर चुकी है। इसमें मनुष्य बहुत योगदान दिया है, ऐसा कोई चीज नहीं है। मनुष्य के योगदान के बिना ही चारों अवस्था जब प्रकाशित है, मनुष्य अपने स्वयं स्फूर्त विधि से जो करना है वो उतना करना ही कुल मिलाकर के व्यवस्था में जीने का आसार है। मनुष्य
So all that humans have to do is altogether to live in order, and that is the possibility of that is the possibility that
जो स्वयं स्फूर्त विधि से करना चाहिए वो अभी तक रुका ही है। वो रुके रहने से मानव व्यवस्था के सीढ़ी में आया नहीं है। स्वयं को अन्य प्रकृति के साथ पूरक होना प्रमाणित कर नहीं पाया, और बल्कि इसका उल्टा शोषण के रूप में ही आज कटघरे में खड़ा हो गया। शोषण
So all that humans have to do is live in order, live in balance, in coexistence with the rest of nature. And that is something that we have been unable to do up till now. And where we have reached is that स्वयं को कटघरे में
प्रकृति के साथ पूरक होना प्रमाणित कर नहीं पाया, और बल्कि इसका उल्टा शोषण के रूप में ही आज कटघरे में खड़ा हो गया। शोषण पूर्वक मनुष्य सुखी होने की कैसा कामना किया, ये सोचने की बात है। वो आज की स्थिति में शोषण पूर्वक ही सुखी होने के लिए सभी देश सोचता है, सभी धर्म सोचता है, और सभी माने समुदाय सोचता है, सभी परिवार सोचता है।
Right. So instead of being complementary to nature and living in coexistence with nature, humans have been exploitative, instead been exploitative and so all nations, all sects and all religions and most families think of becoming happy through exploitation. Let me just go on.
कटघरे में खड़ा हो गया, शोषण के साथ पूरक होना प्रमाणित कर नहीं पाया, और बल्कि इसका उल्टा शोषण के रूप में ही आज कटघरे में खड़ा हो गया। शोषण
कटघरे में खड़ा हो गया means to stand in that वो in court when you have to stand as a culprit, no, to be tried for stand on trial. I think that's what कटघरे में खड़ा होना is. He's saying so instead of being complementary to nature, today we find that humans are in that are on trial because they have been completely exploitative.
पूर्वक मनुष्य सुखी होने की कैसा कामना किया, यह सोचने की बात है। वो
How humans thought of becoming happy through exploitation is worth thinking about.
आज की स्थिति में शोषण पूर्वक की सुखी होने के लिए सभी देश सोचता है, सभी धर्म सोचता है और सभी माने समुदाय सोचता है, सभी परिवार।
Today, every country, every religion, every community, a communal group, every family thinks that happiness can be achieved through exploitation.
परिवार सोचता है, अधिकांश परिवार तो सोचता ही है।
At least most families.
जहाँ तक राज्य और समुदाय की बात है, शोषण पूर्वक ही सुखी हो सकते हैं, यही अंतिम बात।
So from nation till family, at least he says, at least most families think that one can only find happiness through exploitation. And what?
अधिकांश परिवार तो सोचता ही है, इस ढंग की काम है। जहाँ तक राज्य और समुदाय की बात है, शोषण पूर्वक ही।
And as far as states and communes or communal groups go, they certainly think that it is only through exploitation that they can be happy.
सुखी हो सकते हैं, यही अंतिम बात। तो विज्ञान में इसके
that is the final conclusion that they come to.
समर्थक है, संघर्ष पूर्वक की मनुष्य अपने अस्तित्व को बनाए रखना होगा। उनका अस्तित्व के मतलब है संघर्ष करें अपने
So science too is in agreement with this because they believe that it is only through struggle that we can maintain or ensure our survival.
को बनाए रखना होगा। उनका अस्तित्व के मतलब है संघर्ष करें अपने जात अपने एक समूह को सब बलवान बनाए, खूब खावे पीवे, बाकी को सबको मारे पीटे खावे समाप्त करें। संघर्ष पूर्वक की मनुष्य अपने अस्तित्व को बनाए रखना होगा। उनका अस्तित्व के मतलब है संघर्ष करें अपने जात अपने एक समूह को सब बलवान बनाए, खूब खावे पीवे।
Right. So they believe that survival can only be ensured through struggle, which means that ensuring the survival of their own species, of their own group, communal group, to feed it and to nourish it and to protect it and to, consume as much as possible within that communal group or within that species, and when it comes to animals and when it comes to humans, the communal group, community, but not quite community. He's calling it a samudaya, which is a communal group.
बाकी को सबको मारे पीटे खावे समाप्त करें, यही बात आती है।
So what is he saying? That to feed one's own communal group, to nourish it and to have it consume as much as possible, and as for others, as for other communal groups, kill them, beat them, destroy them, it doesn't matter. That is all necessary.
बाकी को सबको मारे पीटे खावे समाप्त करें, यही बात आती है।
Finish them.
तो
that is what comes up.
उसका भैंस वाला बात, उसी का नाम संघर्ष। संघर्ष करने
So what is this? So this is जिसका लाठी उसका भैंस. An equivalent idiom for that is might is right. So what is this? This is might is right. Or जिसका लाठी उसका भैंस, which is whoever has the stick owns the buffalo.
के लिए अभी संघर्ष करना है, विकास मानते हैं। विकसित देश उन्हीं लोग सबको मारे पीटे खावे समाप्त करें, यही बात आती है। तो जिसका लाठी उसका भैंस वाला बात, उसी का नाम संघर्ष। संघर्ष करने के लिए अभी संघर्ष करना है, विकास मानते हैं। विकसित देश उन्हीं को मानते हैं जो ज्यादा सामरिक शक्ति से संपन्न है।
So this might is right, that is itself struggle, and this struggle itself is considered to be development, and such nations are considered to be developed, those who have more war weapons of mass destruction and weapons of war. Those nations are considered to be more developed.
विकसित देश उन्हीं को मानते हैं जो ज्यादा सामरिक शक्ति से संपन्न है, ज्यादा शोषण कर पाते हैं, ज्यादा व्यापार बुद्धि को प्रयोग कर पाते हैं, इनको विकसित देश कहते हैं।
Yeah, so those countries are called developed nations, those who have greater weapons of mass destruction, war equipment, those who are able to exploit much more, and those who are therefore able to do much more business. Vyapar buddhis is who are able to succeed in this business mindset and therefore exploit much more.
व्यापार बुद्धि को प्रयोग कर पाते हैं, इनको विकसित देश कहते हैं। अभी आज के नग्न चित्र यही है। तो जबकि विकसित देश वही है जो जागृत हो गया है, व्यवस्था।
This is the, I don't know what Nagan Chitra is actually, but I suppose it's saying that this is the status quo. This is the overall narrative of today. However, whereas a truly developed nation will be that which is awakened, जो जागृत हो गया. A nation which is awakened will be the truly developed nation.
में जीता है, समाधानित है, समृद्ध है, माने वर्तमान में विश्वास करता है, व्यवस्था में जीता है, सहज संपन्न है, ज्यादा शोषण कर पाते हैं, ज्यादा व्यापार बुद्धि को प्रयोग कर पाते हैं, इनको विकसित देश कहते हैं। अभी आज के नग्न चित्र यही है। तो जबकि विकसित देश वही है जो जागृत हो गया है, व्यवस्था में जीता है, समाधानित है, समृद्ध है, माने वर्तमान में विश्वास करता है, व्यवस्था में जीता है, सह अस्तित्व को निरंतर प्रमाणित करता है, ये विकसित देश के रूप में विकसित।
On the contrary, a truly developed nation is one which is awakened, and in one which is able to live in order, one which is a nation which is resolved, one which is a nation which is prosperous, one which is has confidence in the present. And we had discussed how confidence in the present is the same as fearlessness in society, because confidence in the present comes from being able to live in relationships. So a nation which has confidence in the present, and one which is able to produce the evidence, therefore, of coexistence. So that would be the really developed nation, not this definition of development, which is all about greater exploitative power, be it through war or trade, war or business.
रूप में विकसित समुदाय के रूप में हम पहचान सकते हैं। विकास करता है, व्यवस्था में जीता है, सह अस्तित्व को निरंतर प्रमाणित करता है, ये विकसित देश के रूप में, विकसित परिवार के रूप में, विकसित समुदाय के रूप में हम पहचान सकते हैं। इस बात के लिए अपन प्रयत्न कर सकते हैं, इसमें हम सफल हो सकते हैं। ये कुल मिलाकर के यहाँ बनता है।
So in this way we can recognize a developed nation. We can try for a developed nation in this way, attempt towards such a developed nation. And in such an event, we can actually become successful.
अस्तित्व का महिमा इस ढंग से समझ में आता है, जीवन का महिमा समझदारी के रूप में समझ में आता है। ठीक है, अस्तित्व का
In this way, we can understand the significance of existence, and we can understand the significance of the Jeevan
महिमा समझदारी के रूप में समझ में आता है।
as understanding.
अस्तित्व का संपूर्ण महिमा क्या है? समझदारी के रूप में समझ में आता है। ठीक है ना?
So what is the entirety of the significance of existence? That can be understood as understanding. The significance of existence is our understanding.
इसके बाद आता है जीवन को समझने की विधि क्या है? वो
After that comes, what is the way for the Jeevan to understand the Jeevan self?
एक अच्छा मुद्दा है। जीवन ही जीवन को समझता है। जीवन ही जीवन को समझ
That is a good object or a good issue, and it is the Jeevan itself that understands the Jeevan.
समझने वाला तरीका, अस्तित्व को जीवन समझने की तरीका, ही जीवन को समझने वाला तरीका, अस्तित्व को जीवन समझने की तरीका, इन दोनों में अलग अलग काम है। तो जहाँ तक रासायनिक भौतिक वस्तुएं हैं, इसको हम प्रयोग पूर्वक उपयोगिता के आधार पर इन सबको पहचान लेते हैं।
And now the way for the Jeevan to understand existence and the way for the Jeevan to understand itself, the Jeevan, these are two different ways. And in that, when we look at and understand the physical, chemical entities of existence,
इसको हम प्रयोग पूर्वक उपयोगिता के आधार पर इन सबको पहचान लेते हैं।
So we are able to identify and recognize all of these physical chemical entities based on our experiments, through our experiments based on recognizing their utilities.
उपयोगिता को हम कहाँ पहचानते हैं? सामान्य आकांक्षा महत्वाकांक्षा संबंधी वस्तुओं के रूप में पहचानते हैं। वो है सामान्य आकांक्षा संबंधी वस्तुएं।
So how do we recognize them in terms of utility? We recognize them as entities that fall under what was the translation? Samanya Kanksha. So our basic aspirations, and Mahatvakanksha, our I found a good word for it. Let me just find it. Basically, higher aspirations or enterprising aspirations are Mahatvakanksha. So we identify the utility of existence, of non-Jeevan existence, under these two utilities. Either they will be under basic aspirations or higher or enterprising aspirations.
वस्तुओं के रूप में पहचानते हैं। वो है सामान्य आकांक्षा संबंधी वस्तुएं, आहार आवास अलंकार संबंधी वस्तु उपकरण है। इस स्वरूप में जितने भी जड़ संसार है, माने रासायनिक भौतिक संसार है, इसको पहचानने के लिए दौड़ते हैं। उसमें अधिकांश भाग को समझ गए हैं, पहचान।
So how do we understand our basic aspiration? How do we understand entities in terms of our basic aspirations? We understand them as objects of our food, apparel, and shelter, and their associated tools. And in this way, we go around recognizing this material world or the physiochemical world in terms of these basic aspirations of humans. And we have been able to do this up till now. We have tried to do this through history, and we have been largely successful in recognizing them.
है, इसको पहचानने के लिए दौड़ते हैं। उसमें अधिकांश भाग को समझ गए हैं, पहचान लिए हैं, उसको उपयोग भी कर लिया है। और दूसरा भाग है महत्वाकांक्षा संबंधी वस्तु, जिसमें
So we've been able to recognize or identify these successfully for the major part, and we even use them, we employ them, we use them.
दौड़ते हैं, उसमें अधिकांश भाग को समझ गए हैं, पहचान लिए हैं, उसको उपयोग भी कर लिया है। और दूसरा भाग है महत्वाकांक्षा संबंधी वस्तु, जिसमें दूर श्रवण, दूरगमन, दूरदर्शन संबंधी वस्तुएं, उपकरण होते हैं, उसको भी आदमी पहचान लिया है।
And on the other hand, we have these higher or enterprising aspirations, under which come our telecommunication, which is telephone, television, and transportation. And these two humans have identified and recognized.
दूरदर्शन संबंधी वस्तुएं, उपकरण होते हैं, उसको भी आदमी पहचान लिया है। पहचान करके ये महत्वाकांक्षा, सामान्य आकांक्षा संबंधी वस्तुओं को उत्पादन करना भी बन गई है। इसको सर्वसुलभ करने का प्रयत्न भी है व्यापार विधि से। अभी
And upon recognizing these, we have also we have also identified the systems and the ways of producing them, mass producing them, and making them universally accessible and available, although with from the business point of view and from the business mechanism.
अभी तक व्यापार विधि से हम सर्वसुलभ करने की कोशिश करते हैं। इसमें लाभ की प्रतीक्षा रहता ही है। हर
Up till now, we have tried to make everything accessible through the business approach. And in that, there is always the anticipation of profit.
उत्पादन में इस ढंग, इसमें लाभ की प्रतीक्षा रहता ही है। हर उत्पादन में इस ढंग से हम सामान्य आकांक्षा, महत्वाकांक्षा रूपी आवश्यकताओं के आधार पर हम वस्तुओं को निर्धारित करते हैं। इसके लिए उपयोगी, इसके लिए उपयोगी, यह उसके लिए उपयोगी।
So in this way, we have tried to make everything accessible through this business methodology in all sorts of our production activity. We've employed this business approach, and so we've recognized and produced both the objects and the tools for basic aspirations as well as for enterprisal aspirations. And on this basis, we recognize each entity. This is useful for that, and that is useful for the other.
इस ढंग से निर्धारण करते हैं। ये निर्धारण करने की शक्ति हमारा ही, वो जो विश्लेषणात्मक शक्ति है, इससे ये संपादित हो जाता है। आवश्यक।
So on this basis, we decide what is useful for what, and this ability of ours, this he's saying Shakti and I'm using force because we've called it powers and forces. So this ability of ours to decide and conclude, it is based on our Vishleshan Shakti or our force of analysis. This is done through our force of analysis.
शक्ति है।
Huh?
It could be discernment, the
Vishleshan is analysis.
Okay.
Vishleshan means, literally it means to separate things that are stuck together. So Vishlesh is to separate, and so is analysis. It means to open things out and see, what are their components made up of.
निर्धारण करने की शक्ति हमारा ही, वो जो विश्लेषणात्मक शक्ति है, इससे ये संपादित हो जाता है।
So what he's saying is, in there you can put discernment. So this ability to nirdharan karna, or to discern or decide rather, that comes from our ability, this force of analysis.
आवश्यकताएं हमारे जो कुछ भी है, हमारा जितने गति माने शरीर पोषण संरक्षण, ठीक है, और दूर श्रवण, दूरगमन, दूरदर्शन, समाज गति के रूप में हमारा आवश्यकताएं सर्जित होते हैं। इसके आधार पर वस्तु को निर्माण करने के लिए, वस्तु को उत्पादन करने के लिए हमारे में निश्चित सीमाएं बन जाते हैं। फलस्वरूप
So that's a very long sentence. So yeah, we produce things. Let me just listen and break it down.
हमारे जो कुछ भी है, हमारा जितने हमारा ये उसके लिए उपयोगी, इस ढंग से निर्धारण करते हैं। ये निर्धारण करने की शक्ति हमारा ही वो जो विश्लेषणात्मक शक्ति है, इससे ये संपादित हो जाता है। आवश्यकताएं हमारे जो कुछ भी है, हमारा जितने गति माने आहार।
So all our needs are determined for on with one second. So yeah, all our needs are determined on the basis of the first being the protection, the nourishment and protection of our body, and secondly, for Samaj Gati. Samaj Gati is for the movement of society. So the basic aspirations, which are food, apparel, and shelter, they come under the nourishment and the protection of the body, whereas the enterprisal or the higher aspirations that are telephone, television, and transportation, these come under the need for the movement of society.
माने शरीर पोषण संरक्षण, ठीक है, और दूर श्रवण, दूरगमन, दूरदर्शन समाज गति के रूप में हमारा आवश्यकताएं सर्जित होते हैं। इसके आधार पर वस्तु को निर्माण करने के लिए, वस्तु को उत्पादन करने के लिए हमारे में निश्चित सीमाएं बन जाते हैं। फलस्वरूप हम उत्पादन करते हैं, फलस्वरूप।
So based on these two given needs, we find that the limits of our the limits within which we feel we develop the need to invent and to produce these goods emerge, and therefore we start producing them.
समृद्धि का अनुभव करते हैं। ये यहाँ तक की एक स्थिति बनती है। फलस्वरूप हम जहाँ जैसा ही हम समृद्धि का अनुभव करना शुरू किया, स्वाभाविक बात है हम व्यवस्था में जीना शुरू करते हैं। इसीलिए सर्वप्रथम हर विद्यार्थी को स्वायत्त बनाने की आवश्यकता है और उसके
So that is for which we are producing everything. As soon as this, so the state of our production emerges from the need from these two needs, and the evidence for this is that as soon as we start experiencing the state of prosperity, we start, what was it?
फलस्वरूप हम जहाँ जैसा ही हम समृद्धि का अनुभव करना शुरू किया, स्वाभाविक बात है हम व्यवस्था में जीना शुरू करते हैं।
So as soon as we start experiencing the state of prosperity, it is but natural that we have begun to live in order. Not quite sure how this connects up.
ढंग से निर्धारण करते हैं। ये निर्धारण करने की शक्ति हमारा ही वो जो विश्लेषणात्मक शक्ति है, इससे ये संपादित हो जाता है। आवश्यकताएं हमारे जो कुछ भी है, हमारा जितने गति आहार शरीर पोषण संरक्षण, ठीक है, और दूर श्रवण, दूरगमन, दूरदर्शन समाज गति के रूप में हमारा आवश्यकताएं सर्जित होते हैं। इसके आधार पर वस्तु को निर्माण करने के लिए, वस्तु को उत्पादन करने के लिए हमारे में निश्चित सीमाएं बन जाते हैं। फलस्वरूप हम उत्पादन करते हैं, फलस्वरूप समृद्धि का अनुभव करते हैं। ये
So based on these definite needs, we find that the definite limits within which we must invent and produce are the objects to fulfill these needs emerge within us. We understand. So when we understand our basic needs, we understand the limits within which we must produce and invent for these needs. And once we know the limits and we have invented and we have produced, therefore we naturally, based on that, we experience prosperity. And therefore, if we are experiencing prosperity, it is but naturally an evidence of us having understood these needs and then having met these needs. So that is evidence of us having lived in order. Are you able to follow that logic? Now it's kind of clicked for me. So recognition of needs means you know exactly, you also then move towards fulfilling the needs. You also know the limits to which you need to fulfill the needs. And therefore, when you know the limit, that's when you will know that you have more than that limit. And that recognition of the fact that I have more than I need, that itself is prosperity. And therefore, that is the evidence of having understood and lived in order. Very important point. The class 11 syllabus in CV.
यहाँ तक कि एक स्थिति बनती है, फलस्वरूप हम जहाँ जैसा ही हम समृद्धि का अनुभव करना शुरू किया, स्वाभाविक बात है हम व्यवस्था में जीना शुरू करते हैं। इसीलिए सर्वप्रथम हर विद्यार्थी को स्वायत्त बनाने की आवश्यकता है। और
Right. So, also, sorry, he didn't mean that it is evidence that we have lived in order. That, of course, we have lived in that we have evidenced our internal order. But upon experiencing prosperity within oneself, for oneself, and that means for one's family, once we have evidenced that feeling of prosperity, naturally we know that we have much more than we require. Now we will very naturally start participating in the larger social order also. And therefore, it is necessary to make every single individual self-reliant. And self-reliant, what is the self-reliance we talk about?
उसके बाद परिवार में प्रमाणित होने योग्य प्रवृत्ति की आवश्यकता है और उसके पश्चात समग्र व्यवस्था में जीने की आवश्यकता है। इस ढंग से काम बनता है।
So therefore, we definitely need to make each individual self-reliant, and after that we need to make them capable of living in a family, and after that they will become capable of living in the larger order, and in this way the काम बनता है. In this way it works out.
इन तीनों स्थितियों में मनुष्य प्रमाणित होना ही अपना सौभाग्य है। इन सौभाग्यशाली बनने के लिए मनुष्य क्या स्वयं स्फूर्त आवश्यकता ही एकमात्र आधार है। तो
this is connecting back to that day's conversation. So becoming evidenced in these three states is itself our good fortune, and this becoming having this good fortune is a result of, I think, the self-motivated or spontaneous need arising in oneself. I'll just listen to this once more.
प्रमाणित होना ही अपना सौभाग्य है। इन सौभाग्यशाली बनने के लिए मनुष्य क्या स्वयं स्फूर्त आवश्यकता ही एकमात्र आधार है। तो अपने सौभाग्य को प्रमाणित करना।
Right. So in order to becoming evidenced in these three, that is becoming self-reliant, capable of living in the family, and therefore being capable of living in the larger order, that itself, evidencing these three, is our good fortune. And in order to become good fortunate in this manner, the only basis that we have is to have the need for these arise within us in a spontaneous manner, in a self-inspired manner. Like we had discussed previously, that our need for understanding has to come spontaneously, and only then will we be able to understand. And that will happen how? We had also discussed that our need for understanding will only happen when we are constantly able to recognize that we are not quite fulfilled yet. We are not quite satisfied yet. There's something missing and I need to work towards that. So that spontaneous desire for this, then that will lead to our understanding this and then eventually evidencing this.
आवश्यकता ही एकमात्र आधार है। तो अपने सौभाग्य को प्रमाणित करने की आवश्यकता किसको नहीं है, कि इच्छा किसको नहीं है, सबको है। आपको बताया वो इच्छा होते हुए परंपरा में उसका मार्गदर्शन ना होने के कारण वह अपने को बहुत बड़ा अनुसंधान वगैरह में डालने में जो वंचित रहा है, वो अपने मजबूरी वश ही ये वंचित रहे हैं। अब
So now who doesn't have this desire to, or who doesn't feel this, have this need to evidence their good fortune? Who doesn't have the desire to evidence their good fortune? Everyone has that desire. And as we have discussed, that despite having this desire, the tradition not having any ways of fulfilling it. Let me just see exactly how he said it.
ना होने के कारण वो इच्छा होते हुए परंपरा में उसका मार्गदर्शन ना होने के कारण वह अपने को बहुत बड़ा अनुसंधान वगैरह में डालने में जो वंचित रहा है, वो अपने मजबूरी वश ही ये वंचित रहे हैं.
So despite having this desire, because there was no guidance provided for it in tradition, therefore we have, had this compulsion to, and the compulsion was that they have not, the tradition has not been able to kind of discover or invent the way of going forward towards this evidencing. And therefore that the lack of this guidance has been the compulsion that we have been devoid of the ways to evidence this human good fortune. It is the good fortune of humans basically to be able to live in these three ways.
अब वो स्थिति मजबूरी की बात समाप्त हो जाता है. यदि वरीयता यदि
And now that compulsion and that state is now at an end, because now that path and that way has been discovered. Now it is present in tradition. Now we do have it in tradition.
अपने अब वो स्थिति मजबूरी की बात समाप्त हो जाता है. यदि वरीयता यदि अपने सौभाग्य को प्रमाणित करना ही बनती है, उस स्थिति में इस प्रस्ताव के साथ मनोयोग से अध्ययन पूर्वक स्वयं को प्रमाणित करना सहज है. इसको शत.
And now, if the priority, the level of priority to evidence our good fortune rises, then variyata banti means when it rises in priority, if it rises in priority, then we will be able to evidence it.
बनती है, उस स्थिति में इस प्रस्ताव के साथ मनो.
In that state, if the priority rises, then in that state, along with this proposal on combining it with our sincere concentration and mental effort and studying it in this way, studying this proposal in this way, we will be able to achieve it.
योग से अध्ययन पूर्वक स्वयं को प्रमाणित करना सहज है. इसको शतशः अनुभव करके देखा गया है.
Upon doing all this, evidencing oneself is natural, and this has been shat अनुभव करके देखा गया. So this has been experienced, like 100%. This has been experienced and checked out.
जय हो, मंगल हो, कल्याण.
So, Jai Ho Mangal Ho Kalyan Ho is, let there be victory, let there be well-being, let there be welfare. So we ended that section. So if in case you have any thoughts or questions or just reflections, we can pause and just share those, or we can move on to the next section. Anything?
No,
Prachi?
Rishta, nothing from my end.
Okay.
Hey.
Manjuli?
No, I'll have to go over it again because when did that Jeevan was involved in the material also, food, yevo, and then other material also. But I thought Jeevan would not be involved in the material.
That's last time we were discussing this only, no? You were saying that the Jeevan has to be separated. And I was saying, no, the Jeevan has to be connected. It is very much involved. Yeah. Yeah.
I have to go.
Reconfigure, yeah.
Matlab, Jeevan was somewhere went through. It said feelings, emotions, blah blah. No, but it has no. It at least bothered about food. And food shelter was a part of the body. But I guess the Jeevan puts it together. No, then only.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the body can't even obtain the food and shelter. No.
And why would it want to? I mean, the body doesn't, I mean, we
The
want to
body,
run the body.
the
The
body
body
wants
needs it.
to survive.
The body doesn't want to survive. We
As
want
a
our body
Jeevan
to
wants it.
survive.
Jeevan wants a body to survive for it to be able to run it
Yeah.
and
And
experience all this.
yeah, yeah. That's the key point.
So,
That
isn't Jeevan exploiting?
no, exploitation. So that's a good question. That raises the question of what is exploitation? Like, in fact, the previous section that we had ended, he had talked a lot about how there is exploitation, and we've that even science as well as all religions and nations believe that exploitation is the way forward, and exploitation and struggle is the law of nature essentially. Survival of the fittest and struggle and you need to the bigger fish will have to eat the smaller fish to survive, and both war and business are all involved in this very same game of exploitation. So this was what was going on there. So that does raise the question of really what here is being meant by exploitation. It will come again later on, but
For the larger good, I guess. No, the larger good. Big fish
it's
eat the
not.
small fish.
No, not quite. So it's not the same as the means justifies the end. For the greater good, you can do any sort of exploitation. It's not like that. It is actually he's saying that it is there. He was critiquing this perspective of science itself. He's saying this is the science's perspective that there is survival of the fittest in nature, and that's not really the case. It's science imposing this perspective. You look at some process happening, and what meaning you give to it is often up to you. You can watch someone giving, like a mother giving who has only one roti, giving it to her child, and you can say the child is exploiting the mother. Or you can read it as the mother is feeling this sense of mamta or generosity towards the child. And what is the real meaning?
Upkar.
Upkar, yeah, udarta and upkar. There's this generosity which is coming out of her maternal sentiment, which is being expressed. So, what lens we view any situation from is up to our understanding. And therefore, what he's saying is that science has viewed nature from a particular lens. That lens is the lens of struggle. Science is seeing struggle in nature, and therefore it's also saying that struggle is the principle for humans also to follow. Similarly, a lot of religions and nations and constitutions, all of these have also seen human society from the lens of struggle, and therefore have kind of propounded that exploitation is the principle to follow. Serve your own at the cost of others. That is the principle of exploitation. So taking advantage for yourself at the cost of someone else, that is the major underlying meaning of exploitation. Increasing your own welfare at the cost of someone else's destruction or some harm to the other. That is exploitation. So then if you're asking whether the Jeevan is exploiting the body, we have to see whether the Jeevan is trying to increase its own welfare by harming the body or not. Is that what is happening? Are we harming the body for our own benefit? So, that is something to be thought about.
Okay.
So that is the meaning of exploitation. Now we can check where all is this exploitation happening.
Okay. That's what I said. I think this needs to be again. I'll have to question it and read and apply it and see whether I can.
Yeah.
I can make out of it, and then call you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if I were to sum up this little tiny section actually that we did,
Ah.
what he was saying was that we've already discussed how the Jeevan goes about understanding existence. Now we need to study how Jeevan, actually says now we must study how the Jeevan understands the Jeevan. And he says the ways for the Jeevan to understand existence is different for the way for the Jeevan to understand itself. And so he did a review of how the Jeevan understands existence. He thinks that Jeevan up till now has been understanding existence in terms of utility. So everything around us, we have understood all the physical, chemical nature, all the non-conscious nature, we have understood in terms of their utility. And utilities are in two sections based on the two natural needs of humans. So the two utilities are basic aspirations and enterprising aspiration.
Mm.
And these correspond to two basic human needs, which basic human bodily needs or physical needs are not even bodily. So these physical needs are the protection and nurturing of the body that happens through our basic needs. And then the second need is the movement of society that happens through these enterprisal needs. So these two are human needs, and for these we have certain aspirations, whether they're basic or enterprisal or higher. And for that we invent stuff, and for that we produce stuff. Now what he's saying is, when we understand the needs in their entirety, then we can produce and invent appropriately, and then we can use it appropriately in that sense of production in the appropriate amount and use right utilization and right security and all of that. That is what leads to this feeling of prosperity. And that sense of prosperity allows us to then participate in the rest of society. Because if we're feeling lacking within ourselves, within our family, if we feel that we have a lack of something, we won't be able to dedicate our life for society. We won't be able to participate in society. We'll be too busy thinking about our own needs. How do we fulfill our house and our family's needs? So it's but natural that this must be ensured in order to go forward. This is something very important because this is something that has been sidelined in a lot of philosophies and a lot of religious traditions also. I think you work in society and you leave your family behind and you work in society, and society will give you what you need for your own body. That's not what he's saying. This is where he differs. He's saying the individual and the family must feel prosperous, and therefore they must have the means to feel prosperous in order to be able to function sustainably in society. That is the only sustainable way for society to function in a humane manner, not dependent on arms and not detaching yourself from family. So this was the major point he was talking about, and that it is the human's good fortune. This is all in context of how understanding the Jeevan is different from understanding existence. And this is all about understanding existence. So why are we doing all this? Again, he brings us back to why we are doing all this is because we want to live with resolution, prosperity, fearlessness, confidence, and coexistence. And for that, we need to be able to live as an individual, as a self-reliant individual. We need to live as a prosperous family, and then we'll be able to live as a harmonious society. So this is the alternate proposal, an alternate to the exploitative society, the communal society, the society filled with struggle. So that is the summary of this section. Now he will
Going forward, he will say how Jeevan is in connection with understanding Jeevan. Whatever.
Yeah. This was a wrap-up of sorts.
Okay.
Prachi?
Yeah. Good. I have to also revise what I missed. So I'm going to watch the recording. And you also send me the book link, na, Rishta, whenever you get time. Like that link was not working earlier.
It didn't work. Right. I'd sent the new one to Manjari. I'll send it to you. In fact, we send it on the group. Yeah. Okay.
अभी तक यह अपन समझने की कोशिश किए समझदारी क्या है, समझने वाला कौन है, समझदारी के लिए वस्तु क्या है? 3 बात पर अपन ध्यान दिए।
Up till now, we have tried to understand what is understanding, who will understand, and what is the entity to be understood. On these 3 issues, we paid attention.
मैं समझता हूँ ये बात एक दूसरे के बीच में ठीक से संप्रेषित हो चुकी।
As I understand it, this has been properly communicated between us.
समझने वाला वस्तु जीवन ही है, ये बात स्मरण दिलाया था। ये बात, इस तथ्य को हर व्यक्ति अपने में ही जांचना होगा।
The entity that understands is the Jeevan itself. This is something, this is a fact that had been mentioned. And this fact must be checked by each individual within themselves.
इस तथ्य को हर व्यक्ति अपने में ही जांचना होगा। समझने के लिए वस्तु अस्तित्व ही है, जीवन ही है और मानवतापूर्ण आचरण ही है।
What the content of understanding is the existence itself, the Jeevan itself, and humane conduct itself.
ये बात समझने के लिए वस्तु के रूप में, बिंदु के रूप में बताया।
These were shared as the points or the entities to be understood.
इसका जो और विस्तार किए तब पता चला अस्तित्व को समझना है, अस्तित्व में विकास को समझना है और जीवन को समझना है, जीवन जागृति को समझना है, रासायनिक भौतिक रचना विरचनाओं को समझना है। ये समझने
And when this was elaborated upon, we found that we must understand existence. We must understand development in existence. We must understand Jeevan in existence. We must understand the awakening of the Jeevan in existence and understand the physical, chemical compositions and decompositions within existence.
की पूरा विस्तार इतना ही है। रासायनिक भौतिक रचना विरचनाएं प्राणाम पदार्थावस्था और प्राणावस्था के रूप में अस्तित्व में विद्यमान है। इन ये समझने की पूरा व्यक्ति अपने में ही जांचना होगा। चला अस्तित्व को समझना है, अस्तित्व में विकास को समझना है और जीवन को समझना है, जीवन जागृति को समझना है, रासायनिक भौतिक रचना विरचनाओं को समझना है। ये समझने की पूरा विस्तार इतना ही है।
So the entire expanse of what must be understood is just this much.
रासायनिक भौतिक रचना विरचनाएं प्राणाम पदार्थावस्था और प्राणावस्था के रूप में अस्तित्व में विद्यमान है। इनका रचना विरचना सबको विदित है। झाड़
So the physical, chemical compositions and decompositions are evident in existence in the form of the material order and the biological order. And this is known, well known to everyone already.
पौधे जैसा जो रचना सबको विदित है। झाड़ पौधे जैसा जो योग संयोग मिट्टी पानी हवा ये सब पाकर जब झाड़ बनते हैं, कुछ काल के पश्चात वो झाड़ अपने आप से सूख करके पुनः मिट्टी बन जाते हैं। तो इसी
So upon receiving soil and water, etc., plants are able to form, and upon formation, after a while, they dry up and decompose on their own. And again go back to being soil and water.
अपने आप से सूख करके पुनः मिट्टी बन जाते हैं। तो इसी प्रकार लोहा पत्थर है, वो भी कुछ काल के पश्चात थोड़ा सा परिवर्तित होकर दूसरे वस्तु बन जाता है और वो भी मिट्टी हो जाता है। इसी प्रकार
In this way, iron is a stone, and after a certain time, it also breaks down and turns into soil and changes in this way.
परिवर्तित होकर दूसरे वस्तु बन जाता है और वो भी मिट्टी हो जाता है। इसी प्रकार
So in this way, that iron transforms into something else, and that also turns into soil.
ये सभी वस्तुएं किसी एक स्वरूप में होकर और दूसरे स्वरूप में परिवर्तित होकर वो बदलते रहते हैं। इसी का नाम है ये एक परिवर्तनशीलता।
So all of these entities are found in some form, and then they transform and turn into some other form, and that itself has been called parivartanshilta, which is the changing nature. Parivartan is change, and shilta is the continuity of change. That is constantly changing. So it's changing nature. I'll think of a better word for parivartanshilta. You could say something like changement or something like that.
बदलते रहते हैं। इसी का नाम है ये एक परिवर्तनशीलता। ये परिवर्तन भौतिक रासायनिक संसार में निरंतर
Dynamic implies parivartanshilta. Dynamic means that it is constantly moving. And parivartanshil means that move is constantly leading to change. So yeah, something like that. Change dynamics. And there must be a word.
Restless.
That's a value judgment. That's maybe not appropriate here, appropriate elsewhere though.
Okay.
That's a term that comes into discussion.
ठीक है।
आबाद गति में चलने वाली एक प्रक्रिया, इसी का नाम है ये एक परिवर्तनशीलता। ये परिवर्तन भौतिक रासायनिक संसार में निरंतर आबाद गति में चलने वाली एक प्रक्रिया है।
So this change is a process that is forever taking place. Abad gati mein chalne wali prakriya. Abad is like it forever, eternal. Is a process that is eternally taking place in the material world.
रासायनिक वस्तु भौतिक वस्तु के रूप में ही मनुष्य शरीर भी होती है। मनुष्य शरीर जीव शरीर भी भौतिक रासायनिक द्रव्य ही है। इन द्रव्य का रचना विधि गर्भाशय में होना देखा गया है।
So this changement or parivartanshilta, this quality of constantly changing, is a quality of all the material world, of all the physical chemical world, and the human body also is also a physical chemical body, and so are animal bodies. So all bodies, whether they're human or animal bodies, they are also constantly changing. And we'll finish this and pause there for today. Let's just see where this sentence ends.
ये किंतु विरचित होना कुछ काल के पश्चात पता लगता है कहीं ना कहीं मनुष्य का शरीर भी विरचित होकर वो विभिन्न स्वरूप में परिवर्तित हो जाता है।
So therefore these bodies also, they compose and then eventually they decompose, and we find out that even the human's body decomposes into various forms after a certain point of time. So that's a very interesting bright note to end on. It's time. We'll continue from here. Day after, I mean, I won't be able to. What is today? Yeah.
Today is Monday, the 29th.
Yeah. Let me just see. I have to travel again. So I'll just think about it and let you know when I can take a session again after this.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow, like we had discussed, tomorrow I can still do it, but since you're also, it's difficult for you also tomorrow, we'll consider doing it afterwards. but the day after that I have to catch my train. So might be tough. Anyway, I'll get back to you on chat on this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Yeah. Bye.